Welcome to We Talk English, your favorite English podcast. We're excited to have you with us today. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay connected for regular English learning podcasts. Let's get started.
Salt, it's everywhere, right? In practically everything we eat. Today we're going deep on this everyday ingredient, exploring, I guess you could say, its impact on our health, and also uncovering some pretty fascinating history. And we're going to do it all through the lens of this We Talk English podcast episode, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it was a great episode. Really highlights how food and culture and history are all kind of intertwined.
Totally, yeah. Okay, so before we go too far, let's just do a quick taste bud refresher,
Yeah.
Sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and that savory, sometimes hard to describe umami.
Right.
But today it's all about salt, essential for our bodies, but so often way overconsumed.
Yeah, for sure. And the World Health Organization actually recommends that we try to keep our daily intake under 5 grams. That's about a teaspoon.
Okay, a teaspoon a day.
Got it. Which this benchmark, I think, becomes really important as we go through this episode.
Okay.
Just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I like it. A benchmark. Okay, so teaspoon a day. Now think about this. You're sitting down for a meal. You've got your meat, bread, maybe some pasta, like the usual suspects. Which one would you guess is hiding the most salt?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Right.
This is where things get interesting, because sometimes our assumptions about food can be a little off.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we'll reveal that answer a little bit later. So
Okay.
Keep that salty thought marinating.
Like it.
But for now, let's head over to Kazakhstan.
Okay.
Yeah. This We Talk English episode, it features Marian Sambiva. And apparently in Kazakhstan, they take their salt seriously, over 3 times the WHO recommendations seriously.
Wow. Yeah, they do. It's really interesting how in Kazakhstan, I guess their traditional diets haven't quite caught up with their more modern lifestyles.
Interesting.
And so Marian Sambiva, she explains that this historically high salt intake, which, was once essential for their nomadic past, now presents a bit of a health challenge.
Okay, so there's a historical reason behind it. Interesting.
Absolutely. So imagine, centuries ago, traversing those vast steppes of Central Asia.
Mhm.
How do you keep your food from going bad on those long journeys?
Yeah.
Salt.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was essential for preserving their meat, their dairy, all those essentials, especially during those harsh winters.
Mm.
And so that tradition, it became deeply rooted in their history, in their culture.
Wow, that is amazing context. Okay. So fast forward to today, we're not nomads anymore.
Right.
And those processed foods, they're not exactly helping us stick to that teaspoon a day recommendation, are they?
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because it's like this paradox where salt, this thing that was once key to their survival, now presents some health risks when we overconsume it.
Right.
We're talking high blood pressure, putting strain on the heart, all
Right.
because of, that excess sodium.
Yeah, high blood pressure and heart issues. Those are serious.
They are serious. So essentially what happens is that when we consume too much salt, our bodies actually retain more water. And this increased fluid volume, what it does is it puts extra pressure on our blood vessels.
Oh, okay.
Which then leads to high blood pressure, which then, that can over time really strain the heart.
Makes sense.
Yes.
It's not just our taste buds driving this, right?
Correct.
It's like salt has infiltrated everything. I swear I find it in the most unexpected places.
Yeah, precisely. And what's really interesting is that governments globally are starting to recognize how serious this is.
Really?
Yeah. So you've got Australia, for example. They actually lowered their recommended salt intake to 6 grams per day.
Okay, so slightly more lenient than the WHO.
Right, exactly. But then you have the UK, and they're kind of playing hardball.
Mm.
They've got stricter laws for food companies and a firm 5-gram recommendation.
Wow.
Yeah, aligning with the WHO.
So different approaches, but same goal.
Right.
Trying to get people to pay attention to how much salt they're actually consuming.
Yes. And it's not about, obsessing over every milligram. Professor Claire Collins from the University of Newcastle, she puts it perfectly. She says we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
Ooh, I like that. Take a step back, look at the bigger picture. What is that what does that actually look like when we're talking about salt?
Yeah. So it's about understanding that this isn't just about personal preference or, a gram here or there. It's about recognizing the global impact that this excessive salt consumption is having on our health as a whole.
Yeah, it's so easy to forget that something so small, like how much salt we sprinkle on our food, can play into like a much larger health picture.
Totally. And, Professor Collins, she stresses that premature health problems, even premature mortality, meaning, death before it's expected,
Right, right.
are linked to this excessive salt intake.
It's a wake-up call for sure. So instead of reaching for that salt shaker, what can we reach for?
Well, Professor Collins, she is a big advocate for, exploring the world of herbs and spices.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Imagine, vibrant flavors minus the sodium overload.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Plus, just think of all those amazing aromas you can have in the kitchen. Now, that's what I call a win-win.
Exactly.
All right, are you ready for that big reveal?
Yes, please.
Remember that meal we were talking about earlier?
Yes.
The meat, bread, and pasta.
How could I forget? Which one was it? Which one has the highest percentage of salt? I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well, get ready for it. The answer is meat.
Meat.
Really? See, I would have thought for sure it was going to be the bread.
Right. Total breadbasket bust, right? But nope. Meat clocks in at a surprising 19% salt content.
Yeah.
Bread's trailing behind at 14%. And then pasta kind of seems like an angel at a mere 7%.
Wow. Okay, that really puts things into perspective because, you don't always think about that hidden salt, all the hidden salt in the foods that we just eat every day.
Exactly. It's like salt leads a secret life.
Speaking of secrets, how about we unpack some of those interesting words that we encountered in this episode? Always good to, expand our vocabulary.
Yes, I love that. Let's do a quick rundown.
All right. So first up, we've got to preserve. Keeping those delicious eats from going bad. We can thank our nomadic friends over in Kazakhstan for showing us the way, right?
Right. A vital skill then and now. I mean, although I'm pretty grateful for refrigeration these days. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. Me too. Speaking of those nomads, right? They were like the ultimate adventurers. Always on the move, their lives kind of dictated by the seasons and their livestock. It's a totally different way of life than most of us are accustomed to.
Right. Makes you think about, how much our relationship with food has really evolved over the years, doesn't it?
Totally, yeah. And while we're thinking about food, let's not forget dairy products. Those delicious gifts from our dairy friends. Cheese, butter, yogurt. I mean, what would we do without them?
A world without cheese is a world I don't want to live in.
Here. All right. So before we get too sidetracked, let's get back to those interesting words. We can't let this deep dive go by without revisiting a couple of great idioms, right?
Yes.
Take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Such powerful reminders to just pause, breathe, maybe gain some perspective, especially in our fast-paced world these days, don't you think?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and really just kind of lose sight of that bigger picture.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes you just need to hit the pause button and reassess.
Absolutely. And then to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Right. It's about understanding the broader context and implications of the choices we make.
Yeah.
Even seemingly small ones, like how much salt we sprinkle on our food, right? Which actually is a perfect transition to our last word, premature.
Okay.
Happening too soon, often with consequences we'd rather avoid.
Yeah, especially when it comes to, our health and well-being.
Exactly. And on that note, I think we've really explored, the history of salt.
Yeah.
And we uncovered some of those hidden truths about its presence in our food. I mean, who knew meat was such a salt hog?
Right.
We did a little vocabulary booster shot.
Yeah.
And most importantly, we were challenged to really, like Professor Collins said, to take a step back.
Yes.
And really kind of examine our relationship with this everyday ingredient.
Absolutely. It's about, like we've been saying, that bigger picture.
Yeah.
And really just being mindful.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, dear listener, with all this new knowledge about salt, what's one small change you could make to your eating habits starting today?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Right.
What is one small change?
Yeah.
I think it's about, not beating yourself up.
Right.
But really just empowering yourself to make more informed choices.
Right. Maybe you swap out that salt shaker for a sprinkle of herbs and spices.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. Or perhaps you become a label detective at the grocery store, comparing sodium content before you toss something in your basket.
Yes.
Right.
I love that. Be a label detective.
The power is in your hands and your taste buds.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about striving for perfection.
Right.
It's about progress, right?
Yep.
Every small step counts towards a healthier, more flavorful,
I love it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Until our next deep dive, stay curious, stay informed, and as always, happy listening.
Yes, happy listening.
And again, thanks for joining us on We Talk English.